I've been with the Beyond Coal campaign for 5 years, working primarily in Illinois, trying to prevent new coal-fired power plants from being built in Illinois. At one point in time, we had 17 being proposed in Illinois. We stopped all but 2 of those. The Springfield power plant, which some of you may have heard about, the Springfield power plant agreement that we made with the city of Springfield, they wanted to build a new power plant. We actually were going to appeal their power plant permit, and we were able to sit down and negotiate with them and talk to them about what they could do in terms of global warming emissions and particulate matter. They reduced their CO2 emissions by 7% across the board. They invested in energy efficiency. They invested in wind power. They bought renewable energy. So we've had a long process of working in the coal world here in Illinois. We're now looking at these existing power plants and saying, wait a minute, these existing coal plants are really dirty. Most of them are really old. Most of them have been grandfathered in, so meaning when the Clean Air Act was passed, they had already been built and they were not required to be up to the same standard as a new power plant would have to be under the Clean Air Act. The 2 power plants in Chicago are Crawford and Fisk. They're located on the near southwest and the southwest side in the neighborhoods of Little Village and Pilsen. They have the highest population of individuals around these 2 coal-fired power plants in Chicago than of any coal-fired power plant in America. Obviously, a coal-fired power plant, there are a lot of emissions that come out. Most of it is respiratory health, causes respiratory health problems, lung problems. Asthma is a huge problem. It can cause heart disease. It can cause lung cancer. Particulate matters, in particular, are hard on the lungs, and the fine particulate matter, the small stuff, gets very deeply embedded in the lungs, and it's basically like the inside of your lungs getting sunburned. Over the past 5 years, we've gone after them legally through appeal challenges. We have proposed a coal plant ordinance in Chicago before. We decided to come together again as a coalition to create a new ordinance. We have Alderman Joe Moore from Rogers Park that has agreed to be the lead sponsor. The ordinance is very specifically about particulate matter, but it's also, and this is brand new for us, it's also about carbon dioxide emissions, which are the global warming emissions. Cars and power plants are just about the largest, those are the 2 largest sources of CO2 in the world. So power plants and cars in Illinois are adding a significant amount of CO2 to the atmosphere. This coalition of groups that have come together are environmental groups, social justice groups, health organizations, renewable energy and energy efficiency businesses, and environmental justice groups, the local groups that are right under the stacks, the Little Village Environmental Justice Organization and the Pilsen Environmental Reform and Reclamation Organization. So those organizations got together, sat down with Alderman Joe Moore, created this ordinance. Basically, it's asking there to be a limit on particulate matter and global warming emissions that would be the same as a natural gas plant. So if they wanted to switch to natural gas, they could do that and fix all their problems, which we know they can do that. Once that gets introduced, it goes to the committee, which is Natural Resources, Energy, and Utilities, Public Utilities, I think is the official title of that committee. There are 8 committee members. It has to go through their committee and be passed back to the City Council to be voted on before anything can happen. So our strategy is basically we see the chairperson of that committee as being a very key target. Alderman Rugai, she's in the 19th Ward, which is basically the Mount Greenwood, Beverly area. So she is a main target. The 7 other aldermen on that committee are also on our targets. Luckily, one of them is Alderman Joe Moore, so we don't have to worry about that. So then once that goes through committee, there might be an opportunity for us to have hearings, public hearings. We're trying to get basically the awareness raised specifically for those aldermen on the committee the constituents need to basically tell their aldermen that we really want this to pass because we want to be a green city. We want to reduce the harmful emissions that are coming out of this power plant. After the original committee looks at it, we're going to be, again, looking at 26 aldermen that we're going to be trying to push to support this. It's already got 3 co-sponsors, which I think last time around it didn't have any co-sponsors. So I think we're seeing a definite shift in how people are thinking about this as opposed to 5 years ago. I got to say that there was hardly any awareness about coal-fired energy and about how dirty it is and about the global warming movement. I mean, there was obviously knowledge about global warming, but this was before, 5 years ago, Al Gore didn't have his movie yet. So it wasn't like a household topic to talk about global warming. Now we're seeing, just last October, a coalition of environmental groups held a 350.org day. I don't know if any of you knew about that, the global warming awareness. There were 600 people outside of those coal-fired power plants to raise awareness about global warming. We had never had 600 people gather around anything coal-oriented before. So I really think that there is definitely a shift in mentality and that there's a very good possibility this time that we're going to be able to pass an ordinance or at least get more support than we have in the past.